Live stream audio check. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Audio check 1, 2.
Check 1, 2, testing audio.
Hi, Pam, it's Tammy from the clerk's office. Can you unmute your mic and test your audio for us, please?
Hi, good evening. Counselor Santos checking in.
Hi, Councillor Santos. Thank you. We can hear you loud and clear. Hi, Catherine. It's Claire from the clerk's office. Can you unmute your mic so we can test you? Audio?
Hi, Bernadette, it's Tammy from the clerk's office. Can you contact Pam Cooper? She's internal staff. She's having a hard time unmuting her mic.
No problem.
I'm never late. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the Planning and Development Committee. Today is Monday, May the 12th. I will start with the call to order. Deputy Mayor Singh.
Present.
Councillor Santos.
Present.
Councillor Vicente.
Present.
Councillor Brar.
Present.
Councillor Keenan.
Present.
Councillor Medeiros.
Present.
Councillor Fortini. Councillor Tour. We have him online. Tour. Councillor Power. I'll come back. Councillor Fortini. Still nothing. Councillor Tour.
Present online.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. We have approval of the agenda. Would anybody like to add, remove, delete, change anything on the agenda here today? Seeing none, been moved by Councillor Vicente, receipt of the agenda. All in favor? That carries. Declarations of conflict of interest. Any members have a conflict of interest that they'd like to declare? Seeing none. We have no general delegations today. I'm going to, oh, we have consent. I'm missing my consent. Our consent motions, because I passed the statutory public meetings. No, I'm good. Thank you. Item 7.1, application to amend the zoning bylaw staff report. We do have a delegation that will hold if the item goes into consent. Any members like to hold 7.1? Seeing none, that's in consent. Item 7.2 is application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw. Gagnon Walker Domes, 2391057, to permit the development of 6 blocks, 3-story tacked, back-to-back towns with 131 units, 157 parking spaces located in an underground parking garage at 0 Father Tobin Road. Any members like to hold this item? Consent. Item 7.3, application to amend the secondary plan and zoning bylaw. MDev Property Group to permit a development of 45-story, 48-story mixed-use development with 915 units, commercial space of 4 levels of underground at 17 to 29 Mill Street North and 53 Nelson Street West, Ward 1. That item is in consent. 7.3.1 is a staff report from Chinoy Sunny Planners Development Services. I'm confused by this. Sorry, that's involved with the 7.3. My apologies. 7.4, application to amend the secondary plan zoning bylaw. Mitra T. Kissen, Daneshwar Kissen, and Sugrim Enterprises, Inc., Blackthorn Development Corporation, to facilitate the residential intensification proposal consisting of 30-story apartment building for 240 residential units, 114 underground parking spaces, a loading area, private lane and access from Park Street at 55, 57, 59, 61, 63, and 65 Park Street, Ward 1. Any member like to hold this? Seeing none, consent. Next item is 7.5, application to amend the zoning bylaw. Mayfield Commercial Center Limited, Weston Consulting, to permit 3-story mixed-use commercial and office building, 6029 Mayfield Road and 11903 Airport Road, east of Airport Road, south of Mayfield Road, Ward 10. Anybody? That's consent. Item 9.1 is the minutes from the Active Transportation Advisory Committee. Consent. Item 9.2, minutes from Brampton Heritage Board. Consent. Item 10.1, discussion item and motion as per circulated to members of council and provided to the public online is the request of Regional Councillor Keenan regarding the Credit Valley Conservation Trail Natural Heritage System. Consent. That is the consent agenda. Been moved by Deputy Mayor Singh. All in favor? That carries. Now I'll go back to my statutory public meetings, which is the nuts and bolts, the meat and potatoes of why everybody's here today. We have a statutory public meeting. I'm going to call them out, and if anybody would like a staff presentation on them, then please put up your hand, and we'll provide that. The first one is the official plan amendment, the Credit Valley Secondary Plan Review. It is to undertake a comprehensive review of the Credit Valley Secondary Plan, Area 45, to ensure consistency with the Brampton Plan and improve overall clarity. This is a city-initiated report and a city-initiated public meeting, only for the public that is here today. Would anybody like to hear a staff presentation on this item? Just by a show of hands, if anybody would like to hear a staff presentation on this item. Seeing none, that item is adjourned for tonight. Next item is item 6.2. That has 2 delegations. One withdrew, I believe, but we'll hold that if you would like to come back on. The second one is Sylvia Roberts that is most definitely delegating on that item. The next item is 6.3, city-initiated report, public meeting, zoning bylaw amendment. It is for the permission of outdoor storage, truck parking, to expand the outdoor storage permissions in existing industrial zones only, and to permit outdoor storage by allowing unrelated businesses to use excess parking spaces for truck parking. Is there anybody here that would like to hear a staff presentation on this item? And I'll ask one more time, to expand the outdoor storage permissions in existing industrial zones that permit outdoor storage by allowing unrelated businesses to use excess parking spaces for truck parking. Would anybody like to hear a staff presentation? Seeing none, that item is adjourned. Item 6.4 is being held for a delegation from Joe Souza. Our next item that will probably be held is an application to amend the zoning bylaw, HL Industrial Holdings, Inc., Glenn Schnarr and Associates, Inc., to facilitate an industrial development comprised of 2 one-story industrial buildings. Is there anybody here that would like to hear a presentation on this item? Thank you. That item is held for presentations. Our next item is 6.6, application to amend the zoning bylaw, Mayfield Commercial Center Limited. Oh, there's Jenna Tebow, sorry. Jenna, is Jenna here or online? Okay, I'll just ask then if there's anybody here about the Mayfield Commercial Center Limited, Weston Consulting, to permit the development of a 3-story building with ground floor retail and office uses at 6029 Mayfield Road and 11903 Airport Road. Would anybody like to hear a presentation from staff on this item? Seeing none, that item is adjourned. Item 6.7 is a application to amend the zoning amend the official plan, Corsiac Urban Planning, Fremont DMHH Partnership, to approve a scoped precinct plan in precinct area 52-2 in Heritage Heights and associated official plan amendment. Is there anybody here that would like to hear a presentation on that item? Seeing none, that item is adjourned. The next one is right below that one, application to amend the zoning bylaw for draft plan of subdivision, DMHH Partnership, Mattamy and Durazio, Corsiac Urban Planning, to permit a maximum of 299 single detached, 217 street townhouses, 52 back-to-back townhouse dwellings, and additional units in future mixed-use residential medium blocks at 10512 Mississauga Road, Ward 6. Anybody like to hear a presentation on that item? That item is adjourned. The next one is above the last one. Application to amend the zoning bylaw, draft plan of subdivision, Fremont Homes, Heritage Heights, care of Glenn Schnarr and Associates, to permit 49 street townhouses, 80 back-to-back townhouses, 1 high-density residential development block, 1 stormwater management pond, and a natural heritage system and park at 10344 Mississauga Road. Anybody here that'd like to hear a presentation on that item? Seeing none, that item is adjourned. The next one is another Fremont Homes, Heritage Heights, Glenn Schnarr and Associates zoning bylaw draft plan of subdivision to permit the 117 street townhouses, 392 back-to-back townhouses, 6 high-density residential development blocks, 3 mixed-use blocks, 1 stormwater management pond and natural heritage system, park and open space at 10916 Mississauga Road. Anybody here that'd like to hear a presentation on that item? Seeing none, that item is adjourned. 7.1 was dealt with onto consent. Okay, so now we'll go back to the ones that are here for presentations. Which is the first one is 6.2, the comprehensive zoning bylaw. And I will ask that, I just let everybody know that, so this is a city-initiated report. This report today is here for the public and the public only. It's not here for any members of council. Members of council will not be providing comments. They will not be, they can ask questions of clarification, but I typically don't even allow that. I'll give them an evil eye if they even speak to this. These presentations are for you and you only. When these presentations are done, we want to hear from you. We provide those, we capture those comments. We put them into the staff, put them into the staff report, and then they bring them back for us to be able to debate and talk about those items. So that's what these statutory public meetings are. And with that, we'll start with, David, I don't see your name. But, oh, okay. David, come on up.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, members of the public, and fellow city colleagues. My name is David Vandenberg, and I'm a manager in the Development Services section. I'm excited to be here tonight to speak about a very important project for the city, the new comprehensive zoning bylaw. I would add that we also have Bobby Gauthier, lead for the project with the consultant WSP, to help in answering any questions that may arise. Next slide. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information and, most importantly, to receive feedback on the proposed new zoning bylaw. The bylaw impacts everyone in the city, and we are really looking forward to getting input on it from residents, businesses, and all stakeholders, so we can take that input back and use it in making the bylaw as good as possible for the city. Next slide, please. Before going into detail on the new bylaw, I'll first take a step back and talk briefly about what zoning is. A zoning bylaw sets rules on how land can be used and developed. For example, it says whether property can be used for residential, commercial, industrial, or a mix of uses. It has rules on what buildings can look like, such as how tall they can be and where they can be placed on a property. Zoning affects every property and building in the city, from backyard sheds to high-rise buildings. Next slide. This slide provides a timeline showing where we are in the project. While the project has a longer history, much of the work has happened since Council adopted our new official plan. Brampton Plan is really the reason we are proposing a new zoning bylaw. This bylaw will help put Brampton Plan into action by aligning zoning rules with the city's long-term vision for growth and development. And for next steps, what we'll be doing after tonight is to take the comments back, review them carefully, and make changes to the draft bylaw based on them. And we are looking to bring this new zoning bylaw back to council for its consideration in the fall. Next slide. One thing I would highlight is tonight's public meeting is just the latest step in community engagement. We've previously had 2 open houses, a number of 7 pop-up engagement events across the city, a dedicated webpage for engagement, and numerous meetings with various stakeholders. All feedback received through that work has helped shape the bylaw being presented tonight. And for those who may have previously provided comments and want to see how they were addressed in the bylaw, a document is posted on our website with responses to all the comments received. Next slide. Now on to the bylaw itself. This slide lists the key goals underlying the new bylaw, which I'll cover quickly now as we go into more detail on them in the remainder of my presentation. First and foremost, the purpose of the new zoning bylaw is to implement Brampton Plan. The zoning bylaw is not intended to be a policy creation document, but it takes many of the policies in Brampton Plan and puts them into action. Other goals include simplifying zoning regulations for residents and businesses, removing barriers to support growth that aligns with Brampton Plan, addressing changes to provincial planning legislation, and expanding housing options and supporting economic development. Next slide. The new bylaw includes 3 main parts. One is the main text, which sets out the general rules that apply to all properties and to each of the different zone categories, whether residential, commercial, employment, etc. The second part is the mapping, which identifies which new zone and which rules apply to every property in the city. The third section is the special sections with the site-specific exception zones. When landowners want to build or use their properties in a way that doesn't meet the zoning bylaw, they have the option to apply for a zoning bylaw amendment to change the zoning for just that property. Through that process, a special section with rules specifically for the landowner's property can be created. The current bylaw has over 3,000 of these sections which have been approved over decades. All were reviewed and decisions made on whether to keep or to delete them. Next slide. This slide shows the areas that are subject to the new bylaw, which is essentially the whole city with two exceptions. The first is the downtown Brampton MTSA, major transit station area, and then also within the downtown, those lands within the Main Street North DPS area. The city is working to update the secondary plan for the downtown to set a vision for how it grows in the future. The intent is to complete that work first and then bring those areas into the new zoning bylaw after that work is done. In the meantime, the existing zoning bylaw would remain in effect for the downtown MTSA, and the Main Street North development permit system bylaw would remain in effect for that area. Next slide. The new zoning bylaw is a completely new bylaw for the city. It is impossible to cover all the changes in this presentation, but I'd like to highlight 4 of the larger changes, including 1, simplifying and modernizing, 2, major transit station areas, 3, housing, and parking as the 4th. Next slide. The first of the key changes I'll be talking about is simplifying and modernizing. The city's current zoning bylaw was improved in 2004 with parts dating back even further. Aspects of it are outdated. What we are presenting tonight is a completely new bylaw, and the new bylaw attempts to modernize and simplify zoning to make it easier for everyone to use and understand. Some ways it proposes to do that are 1, adding new zones and better regulations for high density and mixed use development. Brampton is growing and seeing a shift to more of this type of development. We need better regulations for it, and this new zoning bylaw works to provide those improved regulations. Second, the types of uses that businesses and people want changes over time. People propose businesses now that are not contemplated by the current zoning bylaw. The new bylaw expands the types of permitted uses in each of the zones. And finally, the new zoning bylaw proposes to consolidate and reduce the number of zones to make it easier to use and understand. For example, the number of residential zones is reduced from 34 to 12 and employment from 8 to 2. Next slide. This slide provides 2 examples of simplifying and modernizing. For modernizing, the current zoning bylaw does not list a pet daycare in any commercial zone. Then a business owner would likely need a variance or a zoning bylaw amendment to start one. The new zoning bylaw proposes as pet daycares as a permitted use in most commercial zones. Now that same owner is less likely to need to go through the time and expense of getting a minor variance or rezoning to start their business. The second example is a barrier-free access ramp for a house. The new zoning bylaw adds these to the list of structures that can encroach into a required yard setback. The current bylaw does not. With the change, it would be easier for someone looking to make their home barrier-free to do so. Next slide, please. The second key change is to pre-zone major transit station areas, or MTSAs as they're commonly known. MTSAs are areas within walking distance of higher order transit stations or stops that are intended to transform to transit-oriented complete communities. Encouraging the redevelopment is an integral part of Brampton Plan. The new zoning bylaw proposes to pre-zone these areas to allow development aligning with Brampton Plan by right. Development proposals that conform to the Brampton Plan will no longer need to go through the rezoning process. This is a big change, one that will help implement Brampton Plan's policies of focusing intensification near transit, streamlining development approval processes, and unlocking significant population and job growth. Next slide, please. There are 14 MTSAs across the city as shown on the slide. A number of them are concentrated along the Queen Street corridor and then also at the Mount Pleasant Go, Bramley Go, and then Queen and Gore, as well as Mississauga Steeles and along the light rail transit plant being constructed on here, Ontario. The new zoning bylaw proposes to pre-zone 11 of them. 3 of them, Brampton Go, Bramley Go, and Steeles at Mississauga, are not being pre-zoned because there's ongoing work being done to develop policies for growth in these areas. The intent is to pre-zone them when that work is done. Next slide. For the 11 MTSAs being pre-zoned, the zoning bylaw proposed to establish development permissions to create complete communities with including higher density mixed use forms of development. The site-specific MTSA regulations proposed in the new bylaw also include minimum at-grade commercial requirements to help achieve walkable streets, minimum gross floor area requirements for business and institutional uses in mixed-use office zones to ensure we protect for employment uses in those areas, site-specific rear yard setback requirements within the Rutherford MTSA is an example of a measure to ensure good integration of new development with existing neighborhoods. And then finally, holding provisions to ensure the necessary community infrastructure, like community hubs with schools, rec center, and libraries are delivered. Next slide, please. The next big topic I'll discuss is housing. Brampton Plan identifies housing affordability as one of the key drivers of change influencing Brampton. Pre-zoning MTSAs, as described already, is a big step to address those housing needs, as it will significantly increase the supply of land ready to be developed for housing quickly. Brampton Plan also promotes gentle intensification in neighborhoods to increase housing supply. One measure it identifies is allowing 4-unit dwellings on residential lots along transit corridors. The new zoning bylaw proposes to implement this policy. The new zoning bylaw also proposes to expand the types of dwellings permitted in other low-density areas, such as duplexes and triplexes. And finally, it proposes to allow larger garden suites up to 100 square meters on lots in line with directions approved related to the city's housing pledge and housing accelerator funding. Next slide. This slide provides an example of how the new zoning bylaw will impact housing and MTSA goals. So in the photo, you see 3 tall buildings, and they're located along Queen Street, east of downtown, and known respectively as Park Place, Symphony, and Rhythm developments. They are examples of developments that were recently built in an MTSA that meet the planning goals for it and make valuable contributions to the city's housing supply. The landowners for each of those projects had to apply for a zoning bylaw amendment to be able to build them. The rezoning process took an average of 1 year and 10 months for each of those projects. For similar projects with the new zoning bylaw, the time required for rezoning would go down to 0 because they are proposed to be pre-zoned for that type of development. Next slide. The fourth and final key change I'll highlight is about parking. The new zoning bylaw proposes to introduce a new regime for parking. In particular, it links how much parking is required on a site to the site's proximity to transit and establishes maximum parking requirements in some parts of the city. The zoning bylaw proposes to do this by creating 3 parking regulations areas as shown on the slide. Parking Regulation Area 1, or PRA1, includes the MTSA lands. Here, minimum parking requirements are removed, aligning with provincial policies and Brampton Plan, and removing a potential barrier to redevelopment. Maximum parking requirements are also introduced in the PRA1 area, and that set a cap on how many parking spaces can be built on a site. This cap is intended to help achieve policies that support transit-oriented development and creating walkable communities. PRA2, which is the blue on the slide, includes lands identified as corridors and boulevards in Brampton Plan. These areas are served by transit, but maybe not to the same degree as the lands in PRA1. But because of that transit access, they are subject to lower minimum parking requirements than the remaining parts of the city, which are shown as PRA 3 on the slide. Other changes related to parking include introducing electrical vehicle-ready parking requirements and improving bicycle parking standards to encourage active transportation. Next slide. Earlier, I briefly mentioned the site exception zones, and here I'll be touching a little bit more on the work done related to them. The work for the comprehensive zoning bylaw included a review of each of those zones and as to whether or not to keep or delete them. Note the work focused on that decision point of whether to keep or delete them and did not include revising standards in each of those site-specific zones, except for changes that are needed to make the zoning provisions functional in the new zoning bylaw, such as changing the parent zones. The criteria for the review included: does the site exception conform to Brampton Plan and other planning documents? Was it recently approved? Is the development built, and is the site exception relevant? Is the site exception overly restrictive? Most of these exceptions are proposed to be retained with the intent to reduce uncertainty for those landowners and potential conformity issues for sites that typically are already built out. A table is provided on our website with the decision and rationale for whether to keep each of those site exceptions for those who may be interested. Next slide. To conclude, this slide shows where we are in the process and identifies the next steps. We are currently at the public meeting this evening to share information on the proposed bylaw and to provide an opportunity for members of the public to express their perspectives and opinions on it. Once the review is completed, staff will forward a recommendation report to Planning Committee with the final proposed bylaw, and we will follow up with anyone who has spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in the matter to let them know of the timing for the report, which, as I noted before, is targeted right now for this fall. And next slide. Just as a final note, this public meeting presentation is available online, and the final recommendation report will be posted on the city's Planning and Development Committee meeting agenda in advance of the future meeting. For any questions or comments, you can contact me, and my contact information is on the slide, or Andrew Ramsamy, a planner with the city, also working on the project. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you very much, David. I would go now to our first delegation is Sylvia Roberts, Brampton resident. I don't see Sylvia here. I'm sure.
Through you,
Sylvia
Mr. Chair,
online.
Sylvia is present online.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hello, my name is Sylvia Roberts. I'm a resident of Ward 3. I have provided previous consultation staff in the previous phases. One of the concerns that it brought up is not been meaningfully addressed regarding religious places of worship. It is quite reasonable for the city to say that the baseline zoning is going to permit places of worship that are up to 500 square meters or about 5,000 square feet. That's kind of a cap, and if you want to go bigger than that, you need a zoning bylaw because there's additional studies for traffic and whatnot. But part of it also that I saw in the third draft is it requires 8,000 square meters of area as a minimum. For some context, that the block that St. Michael's Cathedral in Toronto it is roughly 2/3 of that block. So that's the cathedral itself, plus the school and the parish office and all the living quarters and all of that stuff. 8,000 square meters is an extremely large number as a minimum for a residential area. It's only if there was supposed to be a school that was supposed to be built there, and the Catholic School Board decided they didn't need it, or one of the French school boards decided they need it, it's basically the only way you get it possible under this zoning. So, for example, there's many Protestant churches in Brampton that are growing. And if they wanted to build a church, well, the Catholic Church, the Archdiocese of Toronto could just hire some planners and go through that process. For a Protestant church, that is the process of the rezoning and stuff to simply build, construct a reasonably neighborhood-sized church building on two, merging two adjoining lots. You can't put that through the committee of adjustment. It's, hi, I would like to reduce the required minimum amount, minimum lot area by more than 75%. That's not something that any reasonable person would say is a minor variance. So the numbers that we are requiring for the minimum lot area are way too big. And then I've also noticed that when I'm looking at the mapping, so I was looking at the mapping earlier today, so presumably that is based on the third draft. There's a number of properties that, according to the city's housing accelerator agreement, should be zoned for 4 stories, but we've zoned it for 4plexes, which if you look at the zoning, the comprehensive zoning bylaw review, it says actually that's going to have is going to limit it to 3 stories, and I think it was 11 meters. Can someone in planning explain to me how you can have a 4-story building that's 3 stories? That 4 equals 3, it does not make any rational sense. That was an agreement that went to the planning committee, and I was there when you approved it. And then there's the press release for it, and presumably this is supposed to be a legal agreement between the city and the federal government. Well, let's say that you were running a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and one of the vendors you signed an agreement with said, yeah, I don't feel like complying with the clauses of the agreement. I'm going to do my own thing, but I still expect you to pay that. Would a reasonable board of directors of a multi-billion-dollar corporation say, yeah, it's totally fine for you to just unilaterally change contracts on the fly, and we're going to continue to give you the amount that we contracted? Or would you say our solicitors will be in contact with you to resolve this? It doesn't. The agreement was supposed to be, well, we're going to build these units in 3 years. That was like a year and a half ago, and the current zoning, and you can say it's 4 years updating, and we'll do that next time. But if you're approving this, and then you're going to have to go through another zoning process to amend the just recently amended comprehensive zoning bylaw, does that make any sense?
Hey, Sylvia, it's Genevieve. You've got about 30 seconds left.
Sure. Yeah. So it just doesn't make any logical sense, and I flagged that earlier. And the parking is not based on transit; it's based on planning's things. Steeles and Mississauga Road has poor transit. Steeles and Kennedy has great transit. But Steeles and Mississauga Road is, you don't need parking. Steeles and Kennedy, you need tons of parking. A bunch of this doesn't make any logical sense. Thank you. That's my delegation.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. So lots of questions in there and comments. I'm going to ask David to reach out to you, but we'll also make sure that we capture a lot of those great questions in the staff report when it comes back. And we're thinking, I know there's a ton of work that still needs to go in fall of this year, is basically what we're thinking will come back?
Yes, that is.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Dan. Thanks, Sylvia. Gershwak, did you want to still come down? No. Okay. That's it for the delegations on this one, but I'll open it up to the floor. Would anybody like to come down and ask any questions about anything that they heard today about the city-initiated comprehensive zoning bylaw? Anybody can come down about the report that they just heard today, they just heard right now that staff presented. If you'd like any questions about this report, this presentation that we just heard. Yep, about the comprehensive zoning bylaw, the purpose to new comprehensive zoning bylaw, hold a public meeting, the next steps, community engagement. Please state your name for the record and welcome.
Hi, Kathleen McDermott, resident of Ward 3. So I had emailed in a question with regards to setbacks, and I've come to council, I've done delegations, and I've spoken several times about this, and it was just in relation to how it came about was 13 Caledon Crescent was very problematic. So I've asked for, and I don't see it in the changes, is from a window well, the exterior edge of the window well, the setback needs to be 1.2 meters or at least 4 feet for safety concerns. And I was asking for an emergency change to this because of the safety. And I was told it'll be considered. So I'd like it to be a little more than considered. I think it's a safety concern. You see all along McMurtry, these huge egress windows that come up almost to the property line. There's examples where you have them in the middle of driveways and you can't even drive a car past there to be in the driveway. You can't have the neighboring property even put a fence up. So these people, especially when you're coming out of an egress window, my philosophy is these homes need to be safe 365 days of the year. So in inclement weather, with especially what we just had, you're trying to get out of these window wells, and if you have a fence that are out of these basements as an egress window to get out of these basements, you're not accomplishing that. If you need to, and there's also supposed to be a 1.2 meter unobstructed walkway around these areas. And in one of the diagrams I saw, and sorry, I didn't realize the meeting was tonight and had other things going on. So in one of these examples that I saw, the diagram shows a 1.2 meter, but the unobstructed path narrows substantially when it shows the window well. There's a diagram in one of these documents. I think it needs to be relooked at because number one is safety, and the disaster at 13 Caledon Court kind of bubbled this up to the top. And then in looking around in my community, I see them all along McMurtry, and they're just obscenely dangerous in my opinion. So that would be one thing that needs to be changed. Yeah, that's the one question I had.
Okay.
First and foremost.
Thanks,
There's many
Kathleen.
more, but just in terms of the garden suites that I saw there, the 100 meter square, they're increasing the footprint of those. So that's impacting the lot coverage, I'm assuming, to accommodate a pledge that the city's done. There was no public vote on whether or not we as a community wanted to, meet some housing pledge. Garden suites and ARUs shouldn't be included in this pledge. New construction should be included in this pledge. So what's happening is people are forcing square pegs in round holes here and trying to count these units as meeting our housing pledge. Go build new homes. Don't squeeze things. Like if you go along McMurtry, there's a house that has a basement apartment and a garden suite in the back. And we've got garbage problems, parking problems. Like you're putting this planning, please think of the enforcement. I'm sure Robert Higgs up there is not impressed with, what's going to be coming down the pipe to him to enforce. So the left hand needs to talk to the right. So I hope there's some accommodation there. So from my standpoint, don't increase the square footage of the garden suite because it's going to put a mammoth thing. I don't want a garden suite beside me that's increased in square footage. I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't want that. With regards to the PA 123, that they're throwing out whatever parking requirements are going to be required to increase foot traffic, all that. In reality, we know that's not going to happen. What's happening with parking fines in those areas? Should people park in those areas is one of my questions as well. But the main one was the window wells and the side entrance setback.
Thank you, Kathleen. So side setbacks, safety concerns, ARU, garden suites, ratios for new development as opposed to the existing PA 123's parking. So your emails have gone to, I'm sure, Councillor Keenan and to staff, I assume. Yes, David's giving me the thumbs up. So we'll make sure that we address those in a report and maybe reach out to Kathleen as well through your office to have the discussion. Hello, welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jackie McCann. I'm in Ward 3. I do have one question. In the presentation, there was a map of the areas that there was going to be no minimum parking requirements, and most of it looked like it was along Queen Street. I did see one green area off, it looked like it was west of Highway 10. I'm wondering if residents in those areas, in the residential areas, will be informed of these new guidelines? And will they have the opportunity to put their 2 cents in as to what they feel about that? Like, it did look like it was running down McMurchie, and McMurchie now is not nice, to say the least. And there's a lot of issues there, as Kathleen had mentioned earlier, garbage and rats and multiple mattresses out all the day. Like, on the way here, I saw 3 mattresses. Nobody wants to live in a city like that. So if you could let the residents know, I think that would be great. These new areas that will have no minimum requirement for parking. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I will flip over to staff to confirm, did that area get notifications of the zoning bylaw? Do we know?
Yeah, through the chair, we follow the standard requirements for public notification, including publishing in the Guardian,
We
publishing on our website.
we don't follow the standard requirements. We double the standards.
Yes.
Right?
But we
So-
have not, just to be upfront, we have not mailed a notice to everyone at the city because
Okay.
it's a citywide amendment.
But specifically the question around that McLaughlin Road strip, can we go back? I think it was McMurchie strip. Can we double check with that and make sure that the residents on there that are probably going to be impacted, just double check with that one? Maybe I'll ask you again through your office to work with staff. Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? If anybody else would like to come down again and come down and ask any questions, please.
Hi,
Sorry,
my
please
name
state
is
your name for the
Teresa
record.
Brigado, and I'm a resident of Brampton for over 50 years. My question is, the presentation that showed up had an image of a home, and then there was CZ, the changing zone bylaw of how you were gonna change some of the areas of the home. Number one, I see townhouses everywhere with 8, so it's an 8 for a townhouse. Are you gonna change the bylaws so what I know as a front lawn is a front lawn? I don't see townhouse, 4 cars on one side, 4 cars on the other side, and I see 32 cars when I'm walking down Queen Mary, when I'm walking down Wainwright, when I'm walking down Golden Springs. These are all look like that. It is just a jungle. There's no more front lawn. The garbages are in the middle. So with the change of zoning bylaw, are you gonna say this is a front lawn? Yes, you wanna put concrete so you have patio, but you can't park on it. You can't paint it black. I don't know how people come out of the front door and jump into the car. It's right there. There's no more plants, there's no more boulevards. It's so crammed and packed. I feel like I'm living in a third world country. It used to be a beautiful city. I used to see trees. Trees are being cut all over the place. What's happening with the residential bylaws for each of those? You're putting a garden suite now in the back. Is someone gonna live in there and put a mattress? Then they're gonna rent the toilet, and then they're gonna park on the sidewalk? I want front lawns to be front lawns. I want sidewalks to be sidewalks. I wanna walk my dog on the sidewalk, not detouring, wearing a construction vest and lit up like a Christmas tree. One of these days, I'm gonna get hit by a car. I will. I know it.
I hope not.
That's all I want to know, is that the bylaw for the house stays the bylaw for the house. You put a tree, you have the house, you have parking, you have 1-car garage, you're lucky to have 2 cars. You don't have 5 cars.
So I think the question relates to front yard coverage for natural landscape, grass, and is the comprehensive review going to take that into account? Thank you so much for your question. Is there anybody else that would like to come down and ask any questions? No? Okay. One quick one.
Other question I had was just in terms of the document itself is 153 pages. So I do have a full-time job, so I cannot go through 153 pages. It needs to be a little more easier for the average resident to be able to consume this information. So having some sort of version control, and I did email both David and Steve about this, asking for what what is the baseline here? Like, what are we going from and going to? Because you're asking us all blindly to go through a 153-page document and not understand, like, I know section 10 pretty well for not great reasons, but I know that pretty well. So help me out here and give me the delta on what you're proposing, because I don't have the cycles to do that, and I'd like to have some impact on this, because the reason that we're here is for positive change.
For sure.
And I think Teresa's frustration is the change we've seen so far is not positive, and the bylaws and so forth are not being enforced, so that, yeah, she will get run over at some point soon because of the crazy number of cars in her area. The other thing that I wanted to know is in the new bylaws, if there's anything that we can do to prevent garage conversions, because people are converting their homes to, or their garages to living space or an ARU, and then they're using the, oh, we can't park in our garage, or we have one less parking. That was your choice, not mine, to convert your garage, and using that or making it easier for people to convert and condense the, and put more people into homes is not something where I want to live. So I want to make sure that we prevent those things from happening. So if there's anything we can do about preventing or not approving a garage conversion, because especially when they're putting a door and then like you've got a brown garage door and you put a white, like just a screen door in the middle of it, like these are decreasing our property values. So when you're making these changes across the board, please take into consideration our property values. Like, we want a tree on a property, we want some garden space on a property, we want a driveway to be a driveway and not have like gray area. So that's what we're also asking for when you're considering these things. But garage conversion and the conversion control on it would be good.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to come down asking questions? Seeing none. The city-initiated report 2025, and again, maybe I'll ask Steve to actually, Kathleen's absolutely right. It's a lot of pages, a lot of information. As a planner, you get it, right? I don't necessarily, but I have time to read it. This is my full-time job. But one good thing I think we're looking at is this isn't coming back till like, we have all summer into the fall, but maybe for us to, something to look at is that Coles Notes versions, right? High level, and I've seen us do them before, so maybe if you can talk a little bit about maybe what could be the opportunity there.
Yeah. Through the chair, through to Kathleen, excellent comment and or question. Certainly part of our overall strategy is to have a communication plan for this, not only sort of a more user-friendly guide, but also even some videos. So, you know, someone wants to do a home improvement, here's how to sort of the 10 steps to reading the zoning bylaw so you can get your permit done quickly and in compliance and whatnot to avoid some of the things. So certainly we'll take that into consideration as part of the recommendation report.
Thanks, Steve. Been moved by Councillor Power that move receipt of the city-initiated report 2025-324 comprehensive zoning bylaw. All in favor? That carries. The next item is an application to amend the official plan zoning bylaw, Gachard Development Group, Inc., Glenn Schnarr and Associates, to permit 3-story commercial building consisting of medical-focused offices, retail space, and children's daycare center at 10709 Credit View Road, Ward 6. And I think we have Joe Souza is here to delegate. Joe's there, but we have staff to come up. Rajvi, welcome. Thank you, Rajvi.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, members of the public, and city colleagues. My name is Rajvi Patel, and I am the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by Glenn Schnarr and Associates Incorporated on behalf of Gachard Development Group Incorporated. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 6, municipally known as 10709 Credit View Road. This site is located at the southeast corner of Credit View Road and El Camino Way. Next slide, please. This map shows an overview of the subject site within the property and surrounding land uses. To the north is El Camino Way, and beyond are existing low-density residential uses. To the south, Roadmaster Lane, and beyond are existing low-density residential uses. To the east and beyond are existing low-density residential uses, and to the west is Credit View Road, and beyond are existing low-density residential uses and institutional uses. Next slide, please. This slide shows an aerial photo of the site and surrounding uses. The subject property fronts onto Credit View Road and El Camino Way. Access is provided to the site from El Camino Way. Next slide, please. This slide shows photos from the site visit conducted on February 25th, 2025. The views include, the first one from the left is the viewpoint from El Camino Way looking south to the site. The second is viewpoint from Credit View Road looking east to the site. And the third is the viewpoint from Roadmaster Lane looking north to the site. Next slide, please. The applicant has submitted an application to amend the secondary plan and zoning bylaw to permit a 3-story commercial building consisting of medical-focused offices, retail space, and a children's daycare center. The building will have a GFA of 2,901.60 square meters. The FSI of the development is 0.83. A total of 454 square meters of landscape open space is proposed, including landscape strips of 3 meters and 1.7 meters wide along the perimeter of the property. Access is provided to the site from El Camino Way. A total of 55 parking spaces are provided, consisting of 51 commercial parking spaces and 4 accessible parking spaces. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations and advancing an associated final report to Council, this development application will be further evaluated for compliance with the Planning Act as amended, consistency with the provincial planning statement, and conformity to the in effect Region of Peel official plan, the City of Brampton official plan, and the Fletcher's Meadow secondary plan. Staff will be prepared to respond to any public comments at the meeting and provide advice to Planning Committee as needed on staff's recommendations related to the comments. Next slide, please. The subject lands are designated residential in the 2006 City of Brampton official plan, which permits predominantly residential land uses, and complementary uses, including commercial uses, are also permitted. An amendment to the 2006 City of Brampton official plan is not required to permit the proposed development. Next slide, please. Within the region-adopted Brampton Plan, the subject property is designated community areas within Schedule 1A, neighborhoods within Schedule 2, and located along a minor arterial as per Schedule 3C. Next slide, please. The neighborhood designation permits predominantly residential land uses, including neighborhood supportive commercial and community services. Permitted uses for the neighborhood's designation located on a minor arterial road include residential uses, community services and facilities, parks and open space, emergency facilities, places of worship, daycare centers, long-term care facility, and motor vehicle commercial. The permitted building typology and height for lands designated neighborhood and are located along a minor arterial road is low-rise, up to and including 3 full stories. An amendment to the Brampton Plan is not required to facilitate the development. Next slide, please. The lands are within the Fletcher's Meadow secondary plan and designated low-medium density residential, which permits residential uses with a broad range and mix of lot sizes for single detached structural units. An amendment to the secondary plan is required to facilitate the proposed development. Next slide, please. The property is zoned agricultural, which permits predominantly agricultural purposes and non-agricultural uses, including a single detached dwelling, supporting housing residence type 1 or 2, a cemetery, an animal hospital, a kennel, a home occupation, and accessory uses. An amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to facilitate the proposed development, and as such, next slide, please. The applicant proposes to amend the zoning bylaw and provide a site-specific zoning to allow for a 3-story commercial building. The proposed permitted uses include uses permitted in the service commercial zone, medical offices, medical clinic, and a pharmacy. Next slide, please. At this time, preliminary issues or considerations that will need to be addressed include whether adequate buffering and transitioning is provided between the commercial use and abutting low-density residential neighborhood. Vehicular access to the site is through a residential street, El Camino Way, which may lead to increased congestion and potential spillover of parking demand if on-site parking supply is not sufficient. Safety concerns due to proximity to Credit View Road and Public Elementary School, and the appropriateness of commercial use given the existing residential designation context. Next slide, please. Staff is hosting a statutory public meeting this evening to share information of the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment on the subject site and provide an opportunity for members of the public to express comments, perspectives, and opinions. Staff will continue to review the applicant's planning rationale and supporting plans, drawings, and technical comments, and staff will advance a final recommendation report for council decision in the future based on the details of the proposed development and applicable planning laws and policies while incorporating comments and considerations from community members, technical reviewers, and other stakeholders. Staff will also follow up with members of the public and other stakeholders who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring this proposal. Next slide, please. For more information on the development proposal, the applicant's submission materials, including architectural plans, drawings, and supporting studies, are publicly accessible through the city's Brampton Plan online portal. Type the file number of the application in the required field, which in this case is OZS 2025-005. This brings up the file page, where by clicking the File Info tab, you will be allowed to view all drawings and documents associated with this development application. Next slide, please. This public meeting presentation will be available online as part of the Planning and Development Committee meeting minutes shortly. For any questions or comments about this development application, please contact myself, my manager, or the applicant, Nick Huhn, who is representing Glenschnar and Associates, Inc. The corresponding contact info are shown on the screen. Next slide, please. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you very much. We'll kick it over to Joe. Joe, come on up. If anybody else would like to ask any questions on this, they can come down and we'll get you to sign your name in the book. Joe, you have 5 minutes. Take it away.
Good evening, councillors. Nice to see both my councillors here, Councillor Brar, Councillor Paleshi. Nice to see you guys. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to speak. My concern, I don't have a problem with the development of the actual 3-story building. I think it's fine. My concern is the entrance and exit way on El Camino, which happens to be my street. So, as you know, I'm a big advocate for safety. As you know, we finally got our speed cushions in on Crown Victoria, which was a huge help with traffic easing. My concern with this is that by increasing the traffic, and I know that Revji just mentioned that it is a potential issue with traffic, and it is. What you guys don't see there is the amount of cars that park there during the day to drop off children in the morning for the school, even though there's no parking and bylaw has not enforced that. And the problem with that is it happens between the early mornings and, of course, in the afternoon. The middle day is not the problem. So the recommendation that I'd like to propose forward is if they could change the entrance and exit way off of El Camino to Credit View Road. Currently, there is a laneway traveling northbound on Credit View Road. There's a laneway on the right-hand side. That would be your entry point. You could also make that an exit point. However, it would mean that the median in the middle of the road would have to be cut short, which I've seen happen many times on major streets. This would allow vehicles to come in and out as pleased, reducing the number of cars traveling down on El Camino. El Camino is also a school bus route during the morning and during the afternoon. So you can imagine parents going to daycare, dropping off their children in the morning. We're going to have to increase that as well. So again, my proposal is just to have that. If for some reason the exit point cannot be accommodated onto Credit View Road, then the exit point only be on El Camino turning left to permit vehicles to go to the stoplight so that they can go either north or south. 90% of the traffic is traveling southbound on Credit View Road. Everyone's going to Mississauga, Brampton, or Toronto. So traveling southbound onto Credit View Road, making a left-hand turn into the commercial building, you'll never have traffic coming up against you. It'll be a win-win going in and out. Again, speed limit is another concern that I have. Currently, you have a speed limit of 50 kilometers on that street. I encourage all of you, take a drive, do 50 kilometers on my street. You won't make it. It needs to be reduced to 40 kilometers. As you know, Crown Victoria Parkette is a huge parkette. At any given time during the summer, you will see children from the amount of 25 to 100 children at that park, and I've counted it, right? So you can't do 50 kilometers, reduce it down to 40 kilometers if we can to do that. And pretty much that's it. It's just the entrance and exit of the building. And if they can do it, that would be great. I'd appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
We'll have staff reach out. We'll make sure that those are captured in the report back.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Anybody else like to ask any questions about this application? Seeing none, it's been received by Councillor Barr. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is application to amend the zoning bylaw HL Industrial Holdings, Inc., care of Glenn Schnarr and Associates, to facilitate an industrial development comprised of 2 one-story industrial buildings at 0 Heart Lake Road, Ward 2. We have Rajvi out again. Welcome, Rajvi.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, members of the public, and city colleagues. My name is Raju Patel, and I am the planner assigned to process and review the subject application. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public and seek feedback on the application filed by Glenn Schnarr and Associates Incorporated on behalf of HL Industrial Holding Incorporated. Next slide, please. The subject property is located in Ward 2, municipally known as 0 Heart Lake Road. The site is located at the south of Mayfield Road and east of Heart Lake Road. Next slide, please. This map shows an overview of the subject site within the property and surrounding land uses. To the north, we have single detached dwellings and beyond our natural heritage features. To the south is an industrial subdivision, and to the east is natural heritage features, and beyond are vacant industrial zone lands and Highway 410. And to the west is Heart Lake Road, and beyond is the Heart Lake Conservation Area. Next slide, please. This slide shows an aerial photo of the site and surrounding land uses. Access is provided to the site from Heart Lake Road. Next slide, please. This slide shows photos from the site visit conducted on April 1st, 2025. From the left to the right is a viewpoint from Heart Lake Road, looking south towards Eco Park Close. The second is viewpoint from Heart Lake Road, looking east to the site. And the third is viewpoint from Heart Lake Road, looking north towards Mayfield Road. Next slide, please. The applicant has submitted an application to amend the zoning bylaw to facilitate an industrial development comprised of 2 one-story industrial buildings. The total GFA will be 15,655 square meters. The north building has a GFA of 9,640 square meters, and the south building has a GFA of 6,015 square meters. The development has a lot coverage of 31.7%. A total of 296 vehicular parking spaces are proposed. A total of 37 truck and trailer loading spaces are proposed. The site features a wetland, valleyland, and woodland area. The proposed landscape area is 0.2 hectares, and a proposed full moves access is proposed from Heart Lake Road. Next slide, please. Prior to finalizing recommendations and advancing an associated final report to Council, this development application will be further evaluated for compliance with the Planning Act as amended, consistency with the provincial planning statement, conformity to the in effect Region of Peel official plan, the City of Brampton official plan, and the Countryside Villages secondary plan. Staff will be prepared to respond to any public comments at the meeting and provide advice to the Planning Committee as needed on staff's recommendations related to the comments. Next slide, please. The subject lands are designated industrial and open space in the 2006 City of Brampton official plan. The industrial designation permits light to heavy industrial uses such as manufacturing, distribution, data processing, limited office uses, service and retail uses, public and institutional use, and et cetera, as per relevant secondary plan policies. The open space designation includes public and private open space, valley lands, watercourse corridors, wetlands, and woodlands. An amendment to the 2006 City of Brampton official plan is not required to permit the proposed development. Next slide, please. Within the region adopted Brampton plan, the subject property is designated employment areas and natural heritage system within Schedule 1A, employment and natural heritage system within Schedule 2. The employment designation permits light to heavy industrial uses such as manufacturing, processing, warehousing, distribution, transportation facilities, offices, ancillary commercial uses, waste management facilities, small-scale restaurants, small-scale retail uses, and et cetera. The natural heritage system designation includes natural and water resource features and areas which require protection, maintenance, restoration, and enhancement to recognize their environmental, economic, social, and health benefits. The subject lands are further designated provincially significant wetland, valley land, watercourse corridor, woodland in Schedule 6B, natural system features and areas. An amendment to the Brampton plan is not required to facilitate the development. Next slide, please. The lands are within the Countryside Village secondary plan and designated the following: Prestige Industrial, Special Policy Area 1, Wetland, Terrestrial Feature, and Potential Intersection. The Prestige Industrial designation permits light to heavy industrial uses, office uses, hotels, conference or convention centers, business support services, restaurants, ancillary commercial and retail. Outdoor storage of goods and materials is not permitted as a primary use. Lands designated Special Policy Area 1 are not suitable for traditional forms of employment uses because of topography and related environmental constraints on site. An amendment to the secondary plan is not required to facilitate the proposed development. Next slide, please. The property is zoned agricultural, which permits predominantly agricultural purposes and non-agricultural uses, including a single detached dwelling, supportive housing residence type 1 or 2, a cemetery, an animal hospital, a kennel, a home occupation, and accessory uses. An amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to facilitate the proposed development, and as such, next slide, please. The applicant proposes to amend the zoning bylaw and provide a site-specific zoning to facilitate an industrial development comprised of 2 one-story industrial buildings. The proposed permitted uses include a range of industrial and non-industrial uses, including manufacturing, warehousing, motor vehicle body or repair shop, office, research and development facility, hotel, conference center, restaurant, place of worship, day nursery, and etc. Retail uses are proposed as an accessory use, provided that it does not exceed 15% of the total gross floor area. Next slide, please. At this time, preliminary issues or considerations that will need to be addressed include impact of the proposed development on the adjacent natural heritage system, including valley land or watercourse corridor, provincially significant wetlands, and woodland. Consideration of adequate buffering and transitioning to the adjacent residential uses to the north to minimize potential adverse impacts such as noise, lighting, and visual intrusion. Assessing the road widening requirements for Heart Lake Road and the truck and traffic movement on Heart Lake Road and its potential impact on local circulation and safety. Next slide, please. Staff is hosting a statutory public meeting this evening to share information of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment on the subject site and provide an opportunity for members of the public to express comments, perspectives, and opinions. Staff will continue to review the applicant's planning rationale and supporting plans, drawings, and technical comments, and staff will advance a final recommendation report for council decision in the future based on the details of the proposed development and applicable planning laws and policies, while incorporating comments and considerations from community members, technical reviewers, and other stakeholders. Staff will also follow up with members of the public and other stakeholders who have spoken, written in, or advised of an interest in monitoring the proposal. Next slide, please. For more information on the development proposal, the applicant's submission materials, including architectural plans, drawings, and supporting studies, are publicly accessible through the city's Bramplan online portal. Type the file number of the application in the required field, which in this case is OZS 2025-0018. This brings up the file page, where by clicking the File Info tab, you will be allowed to view all drawings and documents associated with this development application. Next slide, please. This public meeting presentation will be available online as part of the Planning and Development Committee meetings minutes shortly. For any questions or comments about this development application, please contact myself, my manager, or the applicant, Zachariah Bouchard, who is representing Glenn Schnarr and Associates Inc. The corresponding contact info are shown on the screen. Next slide, please. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Rajvi. Now I'll open it up to anybody that wants to come down and ask any questions. There are no listed delegations, so I'll just move right into the public. If you have any questions, please come down. We'll get you to sign your name in the book, but you're the first one, so come on up and state your name for the record. Then when you're done, if you can sign your name in the book.
Sure. Where's the book?
After.
My name's Christina Ciconetti. I'm speaking as a resident, member of the community, and on behalf of the Heart Lake Turtle Troopers volunteer organization. We are very deeply concerned about the impacts this development will have. We're already facing significant challenges related to speeding, traffic, community safety, wildlife road mortality, and the ongoing loss of wildlife habitat in the area. The proposed development would not only worsen these problems, but it also threatens to encroach on valuable wetland and woodland areas, further diminishing the ecological health of the area.
Sorry, Christine. Can you move your laptop a bit? You're blocking the mic if it's...
Sorry.
Is that okay like that?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Animals currently use this farmland as a corridor to travel between the wetlands from the east to the west of Heart Lake Road. Our volunteers have witnessed wildlife traveling through this property firsthand. Turning it into a truck parking facility will block this natural movement and seriously harm our local species. The city's official plan includes policies to protect wildlife habitat and wetlands. How can this application, with such a high development density, even be considered under these policies? As longtime residents of the area, we have noticed over the last several years that the farmland on this property has been getting bigger and the wetland has been getting smaller. Has any research gone into whether or not the wetland on the western side of this property has been reduced in size? And if so, is there a plan in place to restore it to its natural state? Because the official plan clearly says that is required. On page 33 of the environmental report, it says that development near a wetland can't proceed unless a water balance study is done. I couldn't find the study. Where is it? The environmental study mentions the presence of crayfish chimneys, but it looks like they'll be paved over. Where exactly will these animals go? Heart Lake Road and the area surrounding this property are not intended for truck traffic. In fact, there are currently signs along that portion of Heart Lake Road stating that trucks are prohibited on this road. Yet the addition of an industrial parking lot and buildings will certainly lead to trucks using roads that were never intended to accommodate them in the first place. How can that be? The applicant is proposing to pave over nearly the entire site, leaving mainly impervious surfaces, which would lead to more stormwater runoff, flooding, further degrading the water quality and harm to the surrounding ecosystem. Has the environmental impact of this proposal been considered? And lastly, how is the turtle overwintering habitat going to be protected that exists here through all of this? These are sensitive species that need proper care and not just construction plans. We recognize that the need for development in some areas exists, but we strongly believe that this project as currently proposed does not balance the growth with the need for environmental protection and community well-being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Pauline, you wanted to come down? If there's anybody else that would like to come down, I ask you to come down, put your name in the book, and then just wait for your turn to delegate. welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Pauline Thornham. I'm with the Brampton Environmental Alliance. I just happened to notice as we were going through all of the different documents that it's divided between industrial and environmental. And the environmental is obviously not sustainable. And yet it says there's no impediment to allowing it. It doesn't make any sense to me, because it means that you're just looking at the industrial and you're not looking at the environmental at all. I just think I agreed with everything that Christina said. The corridors need to be left open for these animals, and the more you chop them up, they don't divide. If you divide an area in half, you don't divide the animals just in half. The number of animals in that area goes down significantly. So it's not just a matter of, we've got a line through here or a road through here, and you had 100 animals in that area, and now you're going to have 50 on each side. It doesn't work that way. And we need to understand these things. We're part of the ecosystem of the world, the ecosphere, and we need it. We don't need all those trucks. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Next. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, Daniel Dipperner. I'm a member of the Unifor West Regional Environment Council, as well as the Heart Lake Turtle Troopers. And I just want to share a little bit of consideration on what's happening on Heart Lake Road specifically, and in that spot. We do have a lot of animal mortality, specifically in that area where the road bends around. And as well, we've noticed that we have eco-fencing, something to protect the animals from coming out into the road and protecting people from getting into car accidents. And that eco-fencing is being damaged because the road is sinking. And I'm just wondering if there's been any consideration at all towards the fact that we are building on a very, not just precious wetland, but whether or not it's actually viable for the infrastructure and for the safety of our residents. Thank you.
Thanks for your question. Was there anybody else? No? Okay. We'll ensure that those comments are captured in the staff report, and we'll let certainly the Turtle Troopers know and the residents know when that report's coming back to Planning Committee for debate and Council for ratification. Okay? Checking. There's anybody else that wanted to ask any questions? Seeing none. Been moved receipt by Councillor Brar. All in favor? That carries. 6-6, 6-7 were done. 6-8 was adjourned. 6-9 adjourned. I think that's it, except for public question period. Sorry, as I chair. Councillor question period. There are no members that have any question. Public question period. Is there anybody in the public that would like to come down and ask any question on anything that was on the agenda here today? Now is the time for any last minute opportunities. You're sitting there thinking, oh, I should have asked that question. Now is the time to come down if you want to ask any question about anything that was on the agenda today. If there's anybody else that would like to come down as well, please, you can make their way down. Christina, welcome. Please restate your name for the record.
Christina Cicconetti. I know that with the city approving the housing development just south of Countryside, I'm just wondering if there has been any consideration as to how this development that I spoke of earlier might impact the families and small children that will be living in those new houses that are going in there.
Okay. Let us take that one back to Christina and we'll reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. That concludes question period. No closed session. Adjournment. Been moved by Councillor Keenan that we adjourn today. Our next regular scheduled meeting is Monday, May 26th. It's a great day. 2024 at 1 p.m. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.